Most of you guys did a great job on the epithelial tissue quiz as well. So you are doing good. All right, yeah. I have a smiley face sticker because my daughter Deborah gave it to me before I left this morning. So she got them at Walmart the other day, and then she was handing them out today. She brought them to daycare with her, and all the kids had one before I left. Okay, so we're going to finish chapter 4 today. Okay, we only have a little bit of connective tissue left, and then a couple of pulling things together, and then we'll start the integumentary system. All right, so our next connective tissue is blood. You got your red blood cells, you got your white blood cells. Your red blood cells look like these red circles. And we will spend a whole lot of time talking about blood in AP 2. Okay, so it's coming. What's the function of blood? Transport nutrients, gases, and waste. Okay, nutrients, gases, and waste. Okay, and where do we find blood? It's produced in the bone marrow. We find it in the blood vessels, and hopefully, those are the only places we find it, right? Unless your spleen is ruptured and then it's filling up your abdominal cavity, right? Right. Okay. So now that we have our epithelial tissues and our connective tissues, we can form our very first simple organs. Remember, cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs. So we have to have multiple tissues to make up one organ. So our simple organs are our membranes that line and cover things. Okay? So in your body, you have 3 basic types of membranes. You have cutaneous membranes, you have mucous membranes, and you have serous membranes. These are all considered membranes because they are a collection of both epithelial tissue and some type of connective tissue put together. Okay? So our first type of membrane is the cutaneous membrane. It's our dry membrane. It's your skin. Okay? It's exposed to the air. It's made up of stratified squamous epithelium on the surface. And it's bound to a layer of dense, irregular connective tissue underneath it. Okay, that covers your whole body. So, why do we want stratified squamous epithelium on your skin? What does it give you? Protection. Top layer can slough off, and you're left with good skin underneath. And then why do we have dense, irregular connective tissue in your skin? Binds us together. That's right. So it's like, remember, dense irregular has the collagen fibers going in all kinds of different directions. So it can withstand pulling and tension in multiple different planes without tearing. Okay? So we've got our 2 layers, 2 different types of tissues, which makes us an organ. Cool? Cool. Okay, our next 2. These are going to line body cavities within your body. The first one is your mucous membrane. Now, the definition of a mucous membrane is not that it produces mucus. Some mucous membranes do produce mucus, but not all do. Okay? The definition is that a mucous membrane lines a body cavity that is open to the external environment. Okay? So what are those body cavities? Digestive tract, because it opens in your mouth and your other end. What else? Respiratory, because it opens in your nose and your mouth. And also the urogenital tract is the other one. Okay, and so that also opens, at the other end. Okay, so it's open to the outside environment. Okay, so it's a mucus lining. It is moist, and it's either stratified squamous epithelium in places that need to withstand abrasion, so at the openings of those areas, or simple columnar epithelium, where you're not as much worried about abrasion because things have been broken down far enough. They're pretty mushy by the time they get to those areas. And we're working on absorption and secretion. So we've got columnar epithelium in those areas. Okay? But we've got an epithelial layer, and it's bound to a loose connective tissue called lamina propria, which is usually a type of areolar connective tissue. It's nice and loose. Blood supply, nervous supply can all move through that pretty easily. Okay? And then our third is our serous membranes. You guys know about these serous membranes, right? We talked about them already. They're double layers. There's a serous fluid between them in the middle, and they're found in closed body cavities. So we're surrounding the lungs on the outside, okay? Or we're covering the organs inside the abdominal cavity, okay? This is made of simple squamous epithelium. It's super thin. We're secreting the serous fluid, but we don't really have to worry about much abrasion because we're just there. We're up against another serous membrane. Okay? And it's bound to a layer of loose areolar connective tissue underneath it. Okay? So, simple organs, we've got epithelial and connective tissue. Finally, synovial membranes surround joint cavities, and we're going to talk about them more when we get to our joint section. Okay? They're different because they're connective tissue only. There's no epithelial layer involved. Okay? We'll have that later. Questions? Okay. Now, let's finish up our final tissues. Nervous system, or nervous tissue. What did you guys think of when you saw this slide? What do you say? Oh, that's nervous tissue. Neurons. Okay. Wires, maybe. You've got these long strings all over the place. Okay. And wires kind of work for this one because of what neurons do. What's their function? Send messages, send electrical information, electrical signals from one place to another. Okay? In the tissue, you've got the neurons, which are the ones that are conducting the electricity, and we've got all these supporting cells, the glial cells, which help the neurons do their job. Okay, so we've got both of them together. Okay? Where are you going to find nervous tissue? In your brain. Where else? Spinal cord and your nerves. Good. All right. Now, our muscles. There is an objective that asks you to classify the muscles based on whether they are voluntary or involuntary, and then also whether they are striated or non-striated. Okay, so let's see if we can classify them. Okay, what does the term voluntary mean? You choose. You can control them. So, is skeletal muscle voluntary or involuntary? Voluntary. Good. Okay. What does striated mean? Yeah, Jake, it's got stripes, right? Okay, so it's got stripes. Okay, from this picture, does this muscle have stripes? Yeah. You've got these dark pink stripes and you got a light pink stripe. They're all lined up beside each other. So is skeletal muscle striated? Yes. So we'll put skeletal here. Okay, and we'll talk about the other ones as we get to them. Okay? So when you see skeletal muscle, you're going to see the striations. The cells are long and cylindrical, and they have many nuclei. Lots and lots of nuclei in one cell. And the nuclei are pushed out to the sides of the cell. Okay, so you're not going to find the nucleus in the middle of the fibers. The nucleus is out over towards the side. Okay? So we got voluntary movement. Skeletal muscle is attached to bones and sometimes to the skin. Okay, so that's skeletal muscle. Next is cardiac. Is cardiac voluntary or involuntary? Involuntary. Aren't we glad? Yes. Because you would spend all your day sitting there going, beat, 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 beat. And you wouldn't be able to think about anything else because all you're doing is trying to keep your heart beating. That would be sad, wouldn't it? Okay, so cardiac is involuntary. It happens on its own. And then is it striated or non-striated? Striated. It's a little bit harder to see the striations in the picture. but he does have some stripes. What makes him different from skeletal muscle though? He branches. So instead of having a nice little cylindrical cell, you have a cell that branches. So he comes over here, he comes over here. Okay? So we got branching. What else do we have? Where are the nuclei? They're more in the middle of the cell. And how many nuclei does each cell have? Just one. Uninucleated. Okay, and there's one more big difference. Something we see in the cardiac cells that the skeletal muscles don't have. Yeah, intercalated disc. Sorry guys for my cough. It'll be okay. Okay, so intercalated disc are these dark stripes that are found between two cells. Okay, those intercalated discs are where the gap junctions are found. So it allows the cells beside each other to communicate with each other. So they send information through those little gap junctions in the intercalated disc. So if you see intercalated disc, you should know that's cardiac muscle. Okay. Where do you find cardiac muscle? In the heart. Hence his name. Okay. And finally, we have smooth muscle. Voluntary or involuntary? Involuntary. Striated or non-striated? Good. Okay. So non-striated. You don't see those lines anymore. Okay. Where do you find smooth muscle? In your organs, right? So they surround these hollow organs. So if you want to move things throughout your body, you have to squeeze them. So the food that comes in, you have to squeeze them down your esophagus to get it into your stomach. That's the smooth muscle that squeezes it. From the stomach, you got to squeeze it into the small intestine. From the small intestine, you got to squeeze it into the large intestine. And eventually, you got to squeeze it out the bottom. Okay, so we've got it in the digestive system. You see it in the reproductive system to squeeze the baby out. You see it in the urinary system to squeeze the pee out. Okay, so we see smooth muscle all throughout the body. And again, it's one of those things that we should be glad that it's involuntary, that we don't have to think about it. Okay. All right. Now, I wanted to take a second to also talk about the difference between this slide and dense, regular connective tissue. So they can be easily confused. Let's talk about this one. There are no external or extracellular fibers in this smooth muscle. Okay? Each of these are cells that are closely packed to each other, and the nuclei are lying within the cells. Now, this though is dense regular connective tissue. So, if you're asked, like on a practical, hey, here's a picture, tell me which one it is, and you see this one, it may be hard to remember which one's which. So, things that I use to help me is looking to see if these look like fibers or if they look like cells. So in this picture, we can tell that these are fibers. They aren't individual cells. There are no separations between one cell and another. You also get this wavy pattern in dense regular connective tissue that you don't see in smooth muscle. Okay? And the nuclei in smooth muscle are nice and circular. And then our fibroblast nuclei in here are more squished between the fibers. So they end up being little slits instead of nice pretty circles. Okay? So look at those two pictures, make sure you can tell the difference between smooth muscle and dense regular, because they can be confusing. All right. Those are your tissue types. How do you feel? Yay. Okay. And you've got your chart that you turned in that has been put back up there for you to pick up that you can use to help study these things. Okay. Now, last couple things of tissue. First, steps of tissue repair. So, you've got our tissues. What happens if we mess them up? We have three main steps that we use. We're going to use the example of skin here where we have two types of tissues. We have epithelial tissue at the top, and we have connective tissue down here at the bottom in the dermis. Now, epidermal, or the epithelial tissue, one of the things that we know about epithelial tissue is that it replicates So when we want to repair, the top layer is going to be a lot easier because it replicates quickly than it is to repair the bottom, the connective tissue. Okay, so we're going to talk about those processes. Okay, so step number 1, you've got an injury. Step number 1 is inflammation. So inflammation, you should think of an immune response. Okay, so we're calling in some help to come fight the infection or fight the damage that we've got. So remember that we've got some white blood cells that live here in the tissue. They are resident macrophages, resident neutrophils. They live here in the tissue. They're going to see that there's been damage, and they're going to call their friends. So they're going to release inflammatory signals. Okay? Inflammatory signals will come down here and signal to that blood vessel that serves in the area. The blood vessel is going to get bigger, which is going to allow more blood flow to come through. And it's also going to become leaky. So, now the white blood cells that were in this blood vessel are going to start leaking out and end up here at the site of the damage. So, there were macrophages that were already here, but now we're calling in extra macrophages that were in the blood supply. So we're calling in friends to come help us. We'll also get from that blood vessel clotting factors that will cause the blood to clot here where the damage is. When that clot forms on the surface and it dries, that's where you get your scab. Okay, so we've called in friends to come help us fight the infection, and we've walled off the area with blood clotting. So we're preventing extra blood loss, and we're preventing anything bad from getting out of the area. Okay, so we got it cleaned up. Our second step is to start rebuilding. Okay? Now, on the surface, our epithelial tissue is going to just start replicating, and we'll fill back in the area, and it's good to go. In our connective tissue layer down here at the bottom, we have to do things a little bit differently. So, when we talk about connective tissue, what are the 3 big parts of connective tissue? What do we have? What are structural components? Fibers, ground substance, and cells. Fiber, ground substance, and cells. One of those makes the other 2. Which one is the producer of the fibers and the ground substance? Okay. The cells produce the fibers and the ground substance, right? Right. Okay. What type of cells specifically are the ones that produce the fibers and the ground substance in connective tissue? Remember their name? Something blast. Fibroblasts. Okay, so we need to have some fibroblasts come into the area so that they can make more fibers and more ground substance, right? Because they're the ones who make it. So our first step is to produce this area called granulation tissue. Granulation tissue is going to be those fibroblasts moving into the area and producing a lot of fibers. Now, what we're trying to do is close up this wound and keep it safe. So, the type of fibers they're going to be producing are the strongest fibers. What's the strongest fibers? Collagen. Okay? So they're going to produce a bunch of collagen fibers, and they're going to lay it down, and it's going to pull that wound closed and close it up. That's great, except we're losing the elastic fibers, and we're losing the reticular fibers. So if we don't have elastic fibers, what are we missing? Flexibility, right? The ability to recoil, the ability to come back into shape. So we're strong, but we're not very flexible. So what you end up forming is a fibrosis or scar tissue. Okay, so there's a bunch of collagen fibers there. It's really strong. It holds the wound in place, but it's not nearly as flexible as the original tissue was to start with. It's like tissue scar tissue. So when we look at injuries like a heart attack or something like that, where you are damaging part of the heart, part of the problem with recovery is that you are forming scar tissue in those vital organs. Scar tissue is primarily collagen, really strong, but not flexible. So you're losing some of those properties that original tissue had. So you're losing the ability to do your job that you're supposed to do. Okay, so that's part of the problem. Okay, so our step 3 here is regeneration and fibrosis. So in the epithelial layer, you've got regeneration. We filled back in with the new cells as they divided. We have fibrosis, though, in the connective tissue because we laid down collagen fibers and it became nice and thick. Yeah. Yeah, so if you're laying down a bunch of collagen fiber, it's going to be thick and it's going to be strong, which prevents those neurons and nerves from growing into the area as well and moving forward. Yeah. 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 So there's some weird things that can happen in wound healing, especially if it's a major wound and you've done major damage and nerves are having to completely regrow into the area. Some weird things can happen. Yeah. All right. This also determines whether an injury is a scar or not. So, you're more likely to get a scar if it's deep enough that it's going down into that connective tissue and collagen is going to be laid down. If it's a more superficial injury, it's just epithelial layer, it could cover up and no big deal. Yeah. It could be this, but it didn't repair. Yes, it didn't repair itself. Because the nerve didn't end up back in the area. It could be because of this that the collagen was laid down in a way that it couldn't make its way back in there. It could be that there was too much damage to the nerve in the process that they couldn't grow back up. Because nerves don't divide as easily as our other cells. No. Any other questions? All right. Good. All right. This is also why, like, if you injure connective tissue, if you injure ligaments or tendons, things like that, then it takes them longer to heal, and you get more problems when they do heal because you're laying down those collagen fibers. All right. Developmental aspects of tissue. So, how do we get the tissues we get? Okay. First off, we're going to talk about the very, very beginning. Where do these tissues come from? And we said that all of our connective tissues came from an original connective tissue type. What was that original tissue called? Mesenchyme. And on that slide for mesenchyme, we said that it all originated from the mesoderm in development. And I said, just write it down and we'll talk about it later. Here we go. We're talking about it now. Okay, so this is a 16-day-old embryo, super tiny. There isn't much going on there that actually looks like a person, but will become a person, okay? Or is a person, will become something that looks like a person later. Okay, anyway, so there are 3 primary germ layers. There is this layer called the ectoderm, which is blue, the red layer called the mesoderm, and the yellow layer called the endoderm. The yellow layer, the endoderm, gives rise to the inner lining of the digestive system, always. Those cells will always become the inner lining of the digestive system, okay? The ectoderm, this blue layer, forms the nervous tissue. Okay, so our nervous system comes from this layer. And then the red layer in the middle, the mesoderm, becomes the muscle and connective tissue because there will be mesenchyme in this area that will then become all the different connective tissues. Okay? Then you see the epithelium can arise from any of the 3 germ layers. Okay? It just depends on where it is, where it's located. Okay? By the end of the 2nd month of development, so that's still in the 1st trimester of pregnancy, all the primary tissues are present and all of the major organs are present. So it goes from this at 16 days to having all of our major tissue types and all of our organs pretty quickly. Pretty quickly. Developmental biology is a cool thing to study, but you guys will get there later. Okay, so that's the start, the developmental end of things. Then we've got to talk about the other end of things as you age and you get older. Okay, so I've already kind of mentioned this, but as an adult ages, the epithelial layers thin, and there's not as many cells in the stratified layers, and collagen declines. Okay, remember collagen is the strength. So if collagen declines, what do you think your skin is more susceptible to? Cutting and tearing. So you can just move skin and then it rips. Okay? So that's because of that decrease in collagen. Okay, you also have atrophy of your bones, muscles, and nervous tissue. They start dying away. Contributing factors. What causes these things to happen? Our circulatory deficiency. So your circulatory system is not as efficient as it once was when you were younger, okay? Which prevents you from getting the nutrients to where they need to go, the oxygen to where it needs to go, and the waste out of where it needs to go. You also have a decline in diet, so you're not getting the nutritional needs that you need as you did where we were younger. Okay? All right, that takes us to the end of chapter 4. Yay! All right, any questions about tissues? Okay, then what we have done is finish the introductory material into organ systems. So from now on, we will study until we make it through the entire body. Okay? Yes! Okay, so we're starting with the integumentary system, or the integument. The integumentary system is made up of the skin and its derivatives. Okay, so that's your sweat and oil glands, skin, your hair, your nails. Okay? So here we go. This is objective number 1 for your chapter 5, and this is what your quiz will be partially on Monday, is knowing the parts of the diagram. Okay? You need to know all of the parts for the quiz. We will give you a list. You'll have to match it. So let's talk about some of these things. Okay, so first of all, there are 3 main layers of the skin. The first layer, the one you actually see, is the epidermis. Okay, what type of tissue makes up the epidermis? I'm hearing a couple people say it, whispering. Stratified squamous. Okay, so that's the first tissue that makes up the organ. Okay, the next layer is the dermis. And he's going to be made up of some connective tissue. What type of connective tissue have I told you it's made out of so far? Do you remember? It's pulled in all different directions. Dense, irregular. Dense, irregular. And the dense irregular is going to make up this bottom layer of the dermis called the reticular layer. So the majority of the dermis is that dense irregular connective tissue. However, there's this small layer up here at the top called the papillary layer. Okay? And it's just this little layer right at the dermal papillae. He is made up of areolar connective tissue. Okay? So he's more loose. He allows things to easily pass through him. Okay? This is highly vascularized so that we can give nutrients to that epithelial layer on the surface. Okay? And then below that is the hypodermis, or the subcutaneous level layer, down here at the bottom. And he's mostly adipose tissue. So in our picture you see these yellow blobs. That's the adipose tissue down at the bottom. And we've got some areolar connective tissue there as well. Okay, so those are your layers. Now, Other things that you need to know, the dermal papillae are these ridges up at the top, okay, where the dermis goes up into the epidermis. The sweat pore is the opening of the sweat gland. Your two glands, you've got a sweat gland and you've got an oil gland. The sweat gland will open just to the surface. The oil gland is always going to be associated with the hair. Okay, because the oil goes onto the hair and makes it nice and shiny. Okay. We also have an erector pili muscle, and we're going to talk about all these guys later. But he's right here. He connects to the hair follicle and goes up the skin. Okay. He helps move the hair. So when you have your hair stand on end, it's because your erector pili muscle has contracted. Okay, the hair follicle is this large part of the hair down here at the bottom. The hair root is the root inside of the hair follicle. The dermal vascular plexus is the collection of blood vessels that are down here in the dermis. Okay, so when you see vascular plexus, think of collection of blood vessels. Okay, and the adipose tissue is the yellow down the bottom. Now, nervous structures. You've got a couple things here. The sensory nerve fiber with free nerve endings. Anything that you see that is yellow, other than adipose tissue, is going to be nervous tissue. So the free nerve endings are these yellow lines that just end. Okay, so they're free. There's nothing on the end of it. Okay, the lamellar corpuscle is this yellow circle right here. He picks up pressure deep in the skin. And then we've got a hair follicle receptor or a hair root plexus. And that's going to be the yellow lines that are associated down here with that hair root. So that's going to be what detects movement of the hair. So if you rub, if you rub very gently the hairs on your arm, you can feel that as those hair root plexuses, and they're picking up those movements and sending it to your brain. Okay. So make sure you can label that. It's in your book, it's in your handout, or in your PowerPoint. Any questions? All right. Let's see what's next. I believe we're going to start with the epidermis and work our way through. Okay, so the epidermis is stratified squamous epithelium. So we've got many layers of these pancake cells. Okay? So we also have here that is stratified squamous epithelium that is keratinized. Okay? Keratin is a protein that's going to add sturdiness to it. Okay? So structure and protection to these cells. Okay? And there are 4 layers of epidermis. These start from the deepest. So stratum basale is at the bottom, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, and stratum corneum. Okay, they work from the bottom to the top. A way to remember the order is to remember to be students of grace, love, and compassion. Okay? All the first letters, right? Right. Okay. So, we're going to go through each of these layers and talk about what happens in each of them. Okay, so we're starting at the very bottom, stratum basale. The stratum basale, or the basement of the stratified squamous epithelium, is only 1 cell thick down here at the bottom, right by the dermis. Okay? The cells are called keratinocytes because they are cells that have keratin in them. And these cells are rapidly dividing. So you've got this 1 cell layer down here at the bottom. You want to mark it inside. Okay. Okay. It happens. Okay, so there he is. When he divides, he's going to push his new cell up. Okay, so he's going to split. His new cell goes up, then he stays down here at the bottom. And then he'll keep splitting. He'll split and move up. He'll split and move up, always leaving 1 cell down at the bottom that can divide and keep the skin moving. Okay? You also have in this layer melanocytes and Merkel cells. What do you think melanocytes produce? Melanin. Okay. Melanin is your body's natural skin protectant or sunscreen. Okay. So we're producing melanin down here at the bottom layer, and it will get pushed up through the other layers as well. Okay, we also have Merkel cells, which are part of your nervous system, and it is a tactile receptor or touch receptor. So we have those down at the bottom of your epidermis. Okay. And remember, these cells are really close to the dermis. So what are they going to be able to get from the dermis? Nutrients, the blood, yeah, from the connective tissue. So these cells are doing a lot. They're dividing rapidly all the time. But that's okay because you're close to the nutrients. So they'll stay alive, they'll get what they need, and they can keep dividing. All right. Stratum basale. Next layer is stratum spinosum. This is the next layer up. Again, it's just a couple of cell layers thick. And these cells look spiny on the tissue preparation. So what happens is when these cells are alive, they're nice and plump and juicy, but they have desmosomes that connect them to the cells around them. So the cells are stuck to each other. Okay? And as long as that tissue is still alive, he's going to have plenty of water, he's going to be nice and plump. But once you prepare this for looking at under the microscope, you have to kill it, right? And when you do that, the water will come out of the cells, and what you end up with is something that looks like this. Okay? Where the cells are still stuck together at their desmosomes, but they're shrinking away because the cells are getting smaller, they're losing their water. So you end up with cells that look spiky, okay? And that's where the name comes from, spinosum. This is where we're going to start producing our pre-keratin. So these cells are still keratinocytes. We are producing our pre-keratin intermediate filaments, which will then join together to make keratin in our next layer. We also have in this layer Langerhans dendritic cells that help activate the immune system. So this is another example of those tissue-specific immune cells, or white blood cells. So these dendritic cells sit here in the skin looking for anything that comes in. Okay. All right, stratum spinosum. Okay. Next is stratum granulosum. Okay, so we're going up closer to the surface. Now we have 3 to 5 layers of flattened cells. Our cells are getting weak. We're getting farther away from that blood supply. And we're starting to lose our oomph. Okay, so our cells are flattening. Their plasma membranes are getting thicker. And the organelles within these cells are degrading. Okay, so the cells are dying. They are able, though, to produce a glycolipid that allows them to be waterproof. So lipids, glycolipid is a carb-lipid combination going on here. And that lipid is hydrophobic. It doesn't like water. So it covers your skin in this layer with lipids. It keeps the water inside your body. It helps you not lose it. Okay? And our pre-keratin that we had in our last step is now forming together to give us our keratohyalin granules. Okay? So we're getting keratin formed in these little granules, which again gives us structure, gives us support to give these cells strength. Okay? Stratum granulosum. We've got granules of keratin now. Now, next one is stratum lucidum or stratum lucidum. You may hear it either way. It is not in that picture because he is only seen in thick skin. Where do you see thick skin in your body? There are 2 places. Window, palm of your hand, and soles of your feet. Okay? Those are the only places you have thick skin. Okay? They are thick because they have this extra layer, stratum lucidum. And something else special about thick skin, it's got stratum lucidum, and you have no hair in that area as well. Okay? Your thin skin, all of your other areas have at least a small amount of hair in those areas. Okay? So if we look at our picture, the reason why he isn't shown over here is because this is a picture of thin skin. He's got hair on him. Okay. So the stratum lucidum is a thin layer of clear keratinocytes, and now they are dead. Okay, we've gotten far enough away from the blood supply. We don't have the nutrients we need, and the cells have died. We find him deep to the stratum corneum and superficial to the stratum spinulosum. So he's going to be, it says stratum granulosum. I was wondering why that was wrong, but I read it wrong. So he should be right in there. Okay. And that leads us to our very last layer, the stratum corneum. This is our biggest layer. There are 20 to 30 layers of these dead cells. Okay, they are keratinized, so they're nice and strong and sturdy. There's not much in them anymore, so all the organelles have died, but the plasma membrane is nice and thick. And his job is to protect the deeper cells with the keratin. They also prevent water loss with those glycolipids. And you are losing approximately 50,000 of these cells every minute. Isn't that great? But it's okay, because we make new. Where do the new ones come from? The basal layer, yeah, the stratum basal. So the basal layer makes more. Those cells become stratum spinosum. Those cells become stratum granulosum. Those cells become the stratum corneum, and they push their way up. Okay, and they do something a little bit different as they go from being a newborn cell at the stratum basal to being a dead cell up at the stratum corneum. Okay. All right. Then that is the epidermis. We've got about 4 minutes. This is about the same place I was in the last class. I think I can get the next 2 slides done, and then we'll be finished. Okay. So first of all, we are looking at now the layer underneath the dermis. We are connective tissue now. His job is to bind the body together. So remember we said connective tissue like pantyhose? So this is the pantyhose, the control tops that are all over your body. And it's pulling and holding everything tightly in place. Is that right? Okay. So the top layer of the dermis is this thin layer at the very top, closest to the epidermis. It's called the papillary layer because it's right at the dermal papillae. It's made up of areolar connective tissue. Told you that a couple slides ago. So it's nice and loose. And it has projections into the epidermis, these indentations right here, where you'll find capillaries, because they need to be close to the epidermis. You'll find your nerve endings. You'll see touch receptors. Okay, anything that we want to get close to that epidermis will be up in those ridges, up in those papillae. Okay, now, last slide, here we go. If we take a step back from this, those dermal papillae are small ridges, but if we zoom out, there are even bigger ridges in the dermis. So the dermis has dermal ridges. That would be like this is part of this area, and then it goes down, and then up and down. So we're talking with big ridges now, okay? These dermal ridges then make epidermal ridges, which are your fingerprints, okay? And on the top, on the crests of these ridges, that's where you find your When you touch a surface, your sweat glands are producing sweat that only comes out on the ridges. And so when you touch, you're leaving behind sweat on those ridges. And that's what your fingerprint is when you leave it behind. So when they come back and test for it, they're testing for sweat. Isn't that cool? It's cool. Okay, so we'll end there. We're at the same place as the last class. Remember that Monday you have a quiz, objectives 1 and 11. Come prepared. You're going to do great. 1 and 11.
That's a lot. 1 through 11.
Not 1 through 11, 1 and 11. Yes.